realise who you actually are. And that goes off into a whole spiritual thing, but that's what I believe, you know.
Yeah.
We are beings having an experience on this earth, as opposed to humans trying to have an experience outside. So we've come in for this experience. So don't take it so seriously, you know. It's all a big show.
Yeah.
You know, take a chance.
Yeah.
Make mistakes.
Yeah.
If you don't make mistakes, you don't learn. You haven't got a story if you don't make mistakes. So I was born in 1960, West Ham Lane in Stratford, which used to be part of Borough of West Ham, but they've changed it to Newham. And then the first 6 years of my life I spent between both Nan and Granddad's houses, right? So one Nan lived over in West Ham, back to West Ham Station on the road, and my other Nan lived in Leytonstone. And so I lived there between them two when till I was about 6, and then my mum and dad got in the tower blocks. We moved over to the tower blocks over by Orient, and spent a couple of years there, and they were fun, mate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were fun years there, because you had, as was the first block, and there was 4 other blocks going to be built, and all the stuff to build the other blocks was all on the floor. So when I was 6, we was all running out, playing run-outs and doing things around that block, you know.
Yeah.
And had a couple of great years there, and then moved out of the tower block to a council estate over in Leighton. So we was there for a few more years, and then after that we moved to Leytonstone again.
Yeah.
And then after that I got an house when I was 25 in Irons Park.
Yeah.
Another house in Chingford. Then that all went pear-shaped.
Yeah.
And then I went travelling again.
So we'll get back to moving around. Right, listen, we're recording, you fucker. No, it's not natural. You've got to shut up. We can't.
We just been to a Romanian party and had that balloon.
Fuck yeah, now.
They got barbecue in the front garden. Chatting, loving.
Where's the clapper?
She's left. She's just left.
That's what you saved me anyway. I'll have a pig's ear then. Be lucky.
Thanks, Dad. Appreciate it.
It's all good.
Tishki.
How do you call it? Beer.
But I would call it Tishki. Yeah, that's right.
And how do you call it? Tiskia. See, we adapt our own names.
It's got a bit of flavour in it. I know we're jumping all over the place,
of course,
right?
but that's fine.
But I just when you talk about things that you fail at, you know, like big failures,
of course.
So I've put on a rave day in the Green Man in Leytonstone, and it's on a Monday, bank holiday Monday.
Yeah.
It's going on from 11 a.m. to 1 in the morning.
Yeah.
Right. Our club got shut, but I was trying to carry the name there, see if I still got a bit of following, right?
Yeah.
What I didn't calculate was that it was a bank holiday weekend. So everyone was going out Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then I've got a Monday all day. Right? Everyone's knocked out by then, aren't they? So it was a disaster. Yeah. The funny thing was, it was the first time I did it, because I had DJs and they sold like 120 quid an hour. And I used to think, that's a lot of records. You could buy a lot of records with it, right? Yeah. So I said, look, I don't know how the day's going to work out, but, you know, do you think a lot of people are going to come and watch you? And they say, yeah, loads of people will come if they know I'm going. I go, right, here's the tickets, right? You sell them tickets, and you keep all the money, right? And just show up, right? And then you found out who
was good and who was good and who wasn't.
Yeah. But it turned out a disaster anyway. The
Yeah.
old day. It's just
Yeah.
one of them days out. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose after starting on a Friday, or probably even a Thursday night, because probably most people would go into work till 12 o'clock and then get back on it anyway.
Just the way it was then.
Yeah.
Everyone was out raving at some point.
Yeah.
And
So
it was an hard stretch for
Yeah.
respect to do it on a Monday as well.
So for you, when was your first early stages of listening to music? What was the first album you had growing up?
I think the first track I ever bought was Michael Jackson, Got to Be There.
Yeah.
I was about 5 or 6. When I got a bit older, about 9, 10, we had a lot of black mates when we were kids.
Yeah.
So they was all into reggae and that.
Yeah.
We had a little reggae shop round the corner.
Yeah.
So I remember one of my first albums was 1,000 Volts of Hope.
Okay.
And then there was 2,000 Volts of Hope.
Yeah.
And then you had obviously the pop scene as well.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people like Slade,
Yeah.
David Bowie, Elton John.
So
and
glam
all
rock,
that.
glam rock years.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like Gary Glitter.
Yeah.
You know, I like that beat that
Yeah.
that he used to have. And then as I got to about 16, remember I used to work in the print.
Yeah.
And my old man, he had mates who worked around Jack the Ripper, around Aldgate, Whitechapel. So I started DJing there, and I started DJing in the Charleston in Stratford and the Swan in Canning Town. And I was into jazz funk. So there used to be a magazine called Blues and Soul.
Yeah.
And I used to get that, and I used to go in certain shops that did all the underground music from the States, right?
Yeah.
The only thing was, when I was playing Down Jack the Ripper, it was a Tuesday and a Thursday, and I should do a Sunday afternoon as well.
Okay.
And that area there was no one around there at the time. It was like there was a veg market across the road, so it was prostitutes and lorry drivers around there.
Yeah.
And here I am in the Rippers playing all me jazz funk stuff,
Yeah.
Tuesdays and Thursdays, to crowds that didn't know what it was about. But then I played in other pubs where they did like it.
So even if people turned up or not, you'd still play because you like the music anyway, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, it was...
you're not playing for other people, you're playing for yourself.
Yeah,
but if people come, it's a bonus.
If you like, it was like a good place to try out my music, because no one really cared that was in the pub.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? But Sunday afternoon, it was different.
Yeah.
I've got a funny story about the Rippers, actually. So I used to do Sunday afternoon in there. And it was when Brick Lane was open and Petticoat Lane was open. So the pub was full. And because it used to be called the 10 Bells.
Okay.
Right? It was the pub in the Ripper murders. Right? But at that time, it was actually called Jack the Ripper. So a lot of tourists would come in there. And the governor in there was a face. You know, he was a well-known person. And he was one of my dad's mates, and so I should know all the people in there. And so my Sunday was 12 to 2, right? And then from 2 o'clock to 7, I've got to kill because I'm going over to the Swan in Canning Town. So they used to have afters in there. And the governor used to say to me, have a chat, a few people in there, a few girls, the Swedish tourists as everyone. I said, look, we've got a party going on upstairs after. Fancy coming up? So we go upstairs, and I'd be DJing again upstairs in the afters bit upstairs. And all the fellas would be up the bar at the end, and a few girls would be dancing and that. And then that would go on, and then I would get a cab over to Canning Town, and I'd work in there for the rest of the night. But what used to happen over there, that it was when the mods, you had your Teddy Boys, skinheads, right? All little gangs fighting each other. And so as you come in the front door on the left, I've got me decks here, and you've got the pub's records, right? You've got labels and all that, but I've got my own boxes as well, my little 8 inches, wasn't that 6 inches? Yeah. So I have all my records in there, and all these Teddy Boys have filed in, one after the other.
And Teddy Boys were more into like rock and roll.
Teddy Boys were into like 50s rock and roll.
That's it.
Yeah. I mean, I like the music.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I also like the way they dressed and the way they looked.
Yeah.
Right. So they've all come in, and I've looked over. Right, the governor used to stand right over in the corner. He had a phone right by where he used to stand. Right. So they've all filed in, and you don't know how it's going to go. So I've looked over at him, and he's looked back at me, and one of these geezers come over, one of these Teddy Boys, he's gone at me, "You got any rock and roll mush?" Right? And as I've looked over at the governor, he's gone like that. And I've gone, "No, mate, sorry, mate, I can't, I ain't got any." And he said, "What's that then?" And there's a label, it's got rock and roll with all the records, right? And I thought, how am I going to get out of this, right? And all of a sudden, these 4 geezers come in. And they were, you know, like when you look at someone, you think, oh, I wouldn't want to fight him.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But there's 4 of them like that, right? And these are proper geezers, you know what I mean, from right over the East End. And they've looked at all these Silly Boys and they've gone out like that. I've never seen nothing like it. I mean, they've all looked at them and thought, we don't want none of them for. Do you know what I mean? And they'll just fold out and left the pub. Yeah, it was funny, that was.
So with growing up in from listeners that don't understand, you know, Cockney is a form of slang, and from a part of London, which is East London. But I wanted to talk about the history of where Cockneys come from. We had that discussion earlier.
Oh yeah. Well, you used to have a walled city in London.
So the city was
it's from the old Roman time.
Yeah.
We had a walled city, and people used to come up to sell their wares, right? So they used to open the gates and let people in, and they used to ring the bells to let people know that the gates were opening. So you had to stay within the sound of the bells to hear the gates open to go inside, right? So it became a thing where you had to be born within the sound of Bow bells. Now the sound of Bow bells are in Cheapside. A lot of people think it's Bow Church in Bow, but it's actually Cheapside, St Mary le Bow, which is like, now it would be like East Central London, right at the beginning. So if you're born within the sound of them bells, you know, you're supposed to Cockney. Now I would be right on the edge. Do you know what I mean? Because I was born in Stratford. I suppose if the wind was blowing the right way, do you know what I mean? And it was a quiet day, you might hear them from where I was born.
Yeah.
But you know, the real Cockneys around, you know, obviously East 1, which is Stepney, Bethnal Green E2, Bow E3, Poplar, all around there, E14. And then you got a little bit going over the other side of the river to Bermondsey as well. Bermondsey and that went far away. Yeah. So if you're doing a circumference, do you know what I mean? It went over the other side of the river a little bit as well.
What most people wouldn't understand is we have about 30 something accents in the UK.
Right.
And in London you've got at least a couple.
Right.
So Cockney.
Well, you've got more than a couple really.
Yeah.
Because you've got really posh.
Yeah.
And you've got posh.
Yeah.
Then you've got middle class.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Then you've got Cockneys.
And Cockneys were working class people, right?
Yeah. The word Cockney comes from a cock and hay or something. It's a badly laid egg.
Yeah.
It means someone that shouldn't actually exist.
Yeah, someone who actually shouldn't be born.
Right. Yeah. Because it's like, you know, if you keep the population down and you don't educate them, it's easy to call them scum then, isn't it?
Yeah.
When they have to go out and nick something.
That's true. That's true. And the slang, when did the slang start coming in?
I'm not sure when it originated from, but I know that you had like the costermonger, which there was a certain time when they weren't allowed to have markets on the street, right? And it was hard to get into a proper shop unless you was properly dressed. So it was like really against poor people. So people used to come out and put market stalls out. And the costermonger was a geezer that would stand up, and if the police come, he would have a fight with them, and he'd get nicked and he'd put him inside, and then they would all have a whip round for him when he come out. So he was like a protector of people. And they used to have their own dialect, their own way of talking, where they could say certain things where the police wouldn't understand. But I mean, the thing I like about the Cockney language is that people make up their own ones.
That's it. It can
As long
modernise
as they're funny
it can modernise
and they work,
Yeah.
right? Like we used to say, you know, fancy a pig's ear, and then my mate's boy come along and say, fancy a Britney Spears,
Yeah.
right?
Which is for beer.
It's just both the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just different.
Yeah.
You know,
You can be inventive
as it moves forward.
Yeah.
You've got different. But I like it because it's a colourful language.
It makes you think, keeps you sharp.
Yeah.
You know, when you have to use your head, like when my dad comes out with new ones sometimes, Brad Pitt, shit, you know what I mean? Tom Cruise, booze. Yeah. These ones get added at later dates, and you have to still think on your toes.
My mate used to say, got a chink for that, right? Match.
Yeah.
But he's the only one who used to say it.
Yeah.
But
most people wouldn't know where Chinkford is a part of London, and most people wouldn't even know about it, right? You have to know about Chinkford to know about that. So it becomes personal as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, you know, everyone's got their slang everywhere, right? Different types of slang.
Absolutely.
Ours is mostly a rhyming slang. I mean, there's other slang words we use that don't rhyme at all. Do you know what I mean? And you don't really. I mean, it's hard for me to think of them now because you just say them in your daily conversation. Yeah. You know. Yeah. But I think it's a good way of expressing yourself, right? I'm Bernie Flint. You know, I ain't got the pot to piss in.
And Cockneys have always been known in a lot of places to have criminal activity going on because of being from lower class. You have to be inventive how to get the bills paid, you know, and this become, I think, with a bit of a label for a lot of Cockneys for a long time.
Well, look, the East End has always been a dumping ground for all different foreigners coming in. Yeah. Right? Yeah. I mean, without realising it, when I grew up, a lot of my mates, they were Italian families, Greek families. You know what I mean? Yeah. All your kids at school, you know the names of, and you realise they're all from different countries. Yeah. That's just the way it was. Yeah. I mean, my family's, I've got an Irish name, right? There was loads of Irish people went over to the East End, to the docks over Canning Town Custom House, over that way. Loads of our relatives all over there, right? So you've got all these different people come in, but then it all melts into a pot.
And they bring bits of culture, food, drinks, all sorts of different stuff. So,
but the difference was back in them days, all these little kids that were from different countries all spoke Cockney. Yeah, they all spoke the same. We all spoke the same, although it was all from somewhere else. Yeah, we all spoke the same. Yeah, and that's what made it, you know, unique, I guess, in a way, especially with all the different subtleties in the language of Cockney language. You know. Yeah.
Yeah, there's certain things that even Cockneys eat that is from different countries. You know what I mean? Salt beef bagels, all of this kind of things. They're from Jewish culture, and you know, they become part of our culture eventually.
My man used to say loads of Jewish sayings. Yeah, that's Kushti, blah blah blah, because of Petticoat Lane. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like my dad was always down there when he was young. We worked down there and that, and he'd get all their language off of them. See, that's the thing. Like the Jews brought in the markets down the lane.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
A lot of gangs had I think before Craze went and got big. Before that was a lot of Jewish gangs.
I mean, I'm sure there was. Yeah. But I'm talking about what they brought to that area. Yeah. Was all the street markets. Yeah. Right. They did all the fabrics and the bagel shops and this and that. Yeah. So it was you know, it was just a big gathering of all these different cultures and that. Which makes it what it is. I mean, I still go down a bagel shop now and again now. Yeah. You
know. So growing up with your dad, what was your dad's background?
Docker.
Docker, yeah.
Custom house, Canning Town Custom House. His dad was the same. My grandfather was a crane driver. And when the docks closed down, everyone in that area, all labelled people, a lot of them had to go out and go on the thief.
So for a lot of people that won't understand, to put food on the table, you'd have to go and do what it did to...
Yeah, like what the government would pay you in them days, you'd have a very, very poor life. Yeah. So you've got all these dockers that are earning money. Yeah. They're all strong, abled men, and they're earning money. Yeah. Now all of a sudden, all the docks are shut down. Yeah. So they're just left in all these areas around the docks with nothing to do. So a lot of them turn to crime.
And what was the sort of crime would you say your dad first started doing? What was the things that he would do?
I think in them days there was like wage vans, things like that, because a lot of the big companies and everything, they all had, it was all cash in them days.
Yeah.
So that was one sort of thing.
So van would be full of cash to deliver for paychecks and all this kind of stuff. Yeah.
But there, I mean, there was loads of other things, kiting, like checks. There was railways. You know what I mean, breaking into railway trains.
Trains used to take post as well a lot of times as well, right?
Say that again, mate.
The post used to have their own trains that used to take a lot of the post mail.
Oh yeah, no, this weren't that. These were like, do you remember over Hackney Marshes? Like there was hundreds of train lines.
Yeah.
And they all had stuff in them.
Yeah.
So they should get in them. Like my old man would go out and do that. He was like not a big time thief. Do you know what I mean? But I remember, like as a kid, we'd be laying in bed and you'd hear the door go downstairs and you'd hear all these black bags rustling coming in, and you'd think, I wonder if there's anything in there for me, you know. And normally there was. Yeah. Right. So like 1 week we'd have nothing, and the next week I'd have 2 crombies. The only thing was all my mates was wearing a crombie the year before.
Yeah, gotcha.
Do you know what I mean?
So he was a bit of a Del boy.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah.
I suppose you could call it that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was he quite generous with when he had stuff to give it out and share?
The thing was how it used to work back then was they used to meet in pubs to talk about the next thing they're going to do.
Yeah.
So they're always in the pub, right? They're always in the pub talking about what they're going to do or celebrating what they've just got.
Gotcha.
Right? So you don't see your dad much when you have that sort of a dad when you're a kid.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You see him come home when they're drunk and that.
Yeah.
And it all kicks off.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was hard that way. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't easy. But I mean, it makes you tough. It makes you grow up a certain way. I mean, I remember he used to have his mates come round, and they're all big lumps, and they'd come in. Some of them weren't, but they had like sunglasses on and a bright shirt and that in the winter. They just had this way about them. Do you know what I mean? All characters.
Yeah.
And they'd come and sit down in my living room, and out in the kitchen we used to have like bone china tea set, 6 cups, saucers. And he'd say, "Oh, right, go and make us a cup of tea, son." So I'll go in the kitchen, I'll make a cup of tea and I'll bring it in. And I'll try and take as long as I could in there, serving it up, so I could listen to what they were saying.
Yeah.
And so someone would start saying something, "Well, we're going to think about doing." And my dad would say, "All right, son, we'll pour it ourselves, all right." But as I'd walk out, one of them would go, "Here you go, boy." You know what I mean? He'd put a bit of smash in me and a few coins. Yeah. And I walk out and I go, "Yeah."
So music as a kid growing up was a big thing for you at the time.
For me personally, I mean, I remember when I got my first stereo, right? So you had a record player on top and you had a cassette thing underneath.
Yeah.
So I would sit there and spend the time putting a record on, recording it on the tape. And then when we go to a party, I'd put on my cassette. But there wasn't many others like that. Do you know what I mean? Amongst all my mates, I sort of like was really into it. I wanted to listen to my own music.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
So that's before the time of headphones and you know, a cordless tape player and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So getting ready, putting music on, that's setting the mood to get out and feel good, dance. So growing up, where was your first clubs that you went to and places that you went to in London to experience live music?
Cherries, Hackney Stadium. It's gone right off the top of my Spooky Lady, Hackney Marshes. Like when you're 16, there are only certain clubs you could get into if you're lucky.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So they were the 2 over Hackney Marshes that we used to go to at first, and then we branched out. But it was mainly Stratford, Mile End, Bethnal Green, Hackney, Stepney, just round that area.
And what was the music of that era at that time?
The pubs that we used to go in was like the funk jazz pubs.
Gotcha.
But there was a lot of other pubs used to play other stuff. I mean, at the same time when we was into that, the punk scene was starting, was going on.
Yeah.
So a lot of people was in all different stuff, you know. It just happened to, I mean, I remember 1975, right, I was 15, there's a pub called the Player now in Leytonstone. I've gone in there with my mates and there's a DJ in there. We've never seen that before. Do you know what I mean? All the pubs were like pianos and, do you know what I mean? All of a sudden there's a DJ in a pub and we're like, wow, this is good. And there was all young people in there. Yeah. Because most pubs were mixed. All of a sudden there's all these young people in there the same age. So then that's what made me got into it, myself, you know, and my mates, we all started DJing in different pubs.
Was there a scene with the jazz? Was there a lot of scene with puff? Were people smoking then? No. Weed and stuff? No,
not so much then.
Okay.
I mean, the first time I had a puff was about 18, 19. What we did have was speed. So
amphetamine,
blues. They used to call them blues. Little tablets.
A lot of the mods were into that as well, weren't they? Yeah, their music, like a bit like heavy rock and roll and bands like the Who and stuff.
Well, the thing about speed was it made you lie to yourself, right? You listen, you can have another pint, mate. Don't worry about it. Have another one. And you can still talk all right. So you're having all this booze, but you're still talking all right. But then the next day, bang, it all catches up with you.
You pay the bill the next day.
Yeah, like with most drugs, I suppose.
Yeah.
But back then, it was. I remember my mate's mum used to take these what we used to call black bombers. They were the same. They were like for dieting.
Okay.
But they also made you talk over the garden fence, right? So that's what used to happen. He'd take a couple out of his mum's bag, and we'd go have one of them each.
And you'd be dancing that all the time.
Yeah, it was all about dancing. Now, I mean, we went to all the first Case to Soul weekenders. That's when I really started getting into it.
For people that don't know, Case, there was like a seaside resort?
Yeah, it's a holiday resort up in Yarmouth.
And they'd have weekends there of music.
Well, they started, I forget the first year, it was about 1978, 79. But there was only 4 of us went to the first one. Mm. And it was so fantastic, I couldn't believe it. Mm. It's like, there's all young people staying in all the caravans, then you've got your club, and it's going on all weekend. Yeah. You know? So we've gone back and gone down the pub and said to our mates, you've got to have some of this. Like, there's another one coming up, you know. And in the meantime, now we're getting a taste of it. We started going to all the all-dayers. There's like Brighton all-dayer, Bournemouth all-dayers and it. Mm. And we was in the Brighton all-day, and there's these geezers walked past me and they had like Masons written on the back of their shirts. I didn't think much of it. I didn't know what to make of it. Do you know what I mean? And then these girls were standing next to us, and one of them said, oh, look, there's the Masons. And the other one went, oh, yeah, we saw them at so-and-so, the other thing. And the mate went, oh, let's go and talk to them. And I thought, my eyes sort of lit up. I thought, wow, there's something in this, you know. So I remember the next week we was in the Two Puddings in Stratford Broadway. And me and my mates come up with a thing, wasted. Right, wasted, over the top, there you go. Yeah. So I was working in the print, and we had a silk screeners in our firm. Yeah. So I've gone into the art place, what they used to call the paste up guys. They've done me the design. I've gone into one of the owners, funny enough, who had he had a sort of a thing for it. He said, go on, have a go. So there we was. We went out and bought boiler suits, boxing boots.
The t-shirts you were making up and designing, they were basically to get a following for your weekends away?
No, not a following,
or just a laugh?
Not a following. At that age, it was to get girls. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. So you've seen these other blokes with
I saw these girls, and they were the first guys I'd ever seen. They were the only ones I'd ever seen. Yeah. So as far as I knew, we was the second. But after that, it become bigger and bigger, and you had all different tribes from different areas. It was fantastic for everybody. Yeah. It was just a good scene. Do you know what I mean? The weekend we was down the gold mine every week, and that's like 25 miles away from East London.
So how was you going up by train?
No, we just get hook or by crook. Yeah. There was one time where we never had enough motors, so we said, like, fuck it, what we'd do is we'd get on a train and we'd camp out down there. So we took a tent with us, right? Mm. But nothing else. The whole thing was just the whole thing was just fucking pathetic.
Not even a sleeping bag.
No, it was ridiculous. But it was good at 2 o'clock in the morning because it was in the middle of the summer, so it's quite warm. Yeah. And as you come out of the gold mine, you had the sea just across the road. Yeah. So we've put this tent up, all gone in the sea, all lovely, warm, nice. And then all of a sudden it starts to get a bit cold, you know, and you put your stuff back on, and you're thinking, why are we here? Why did we do this? You know, because we're all laying inside the tent. There's room for about 7, and there's about 9 or 10 of us. So the ones on the outside are trying to roll in the middle just to get warm. You know, it's pathetic, really. But it was a laugh, you know.
But that was your first sort of taste away for like weekends away with your mates, going to these sort of what they would be raves of that day and age, right?
So let's go back a bit, right? When I was 16, I worked in the print in the dark room, and I worked with a geezer called Barry MVM, Barry the Maid of Almubster, right? And he used to develop these photographs. We're in the dark room, right? And I'd look in the tray, and as they start developing, you've got these guys standing in the mountains, and they've got all snow around them, right? And they've got shorts on, and they've got girls there, and they've got their Union Jack van in the background.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at these photos and going, I want some of that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to live like that. And that's what I started doing. As soon as I've met Barry, he turned me into travel.
Right.
And I was only working with him a few weeks, and I'd booked up my first holiday in Lorette de Mar when I was 16.
So
four of us went there.
Your experience with Barry is like my experience with you. You met somebody, they give you that insight of experiencing new places, going new places, new music, different cultures.
Yeah, you know, I think a lot of it is about it's taking the jump.
Yeah.
And hoping that you land somewhere nice.
Yeah.
Right. But even if you don't, there's a memory that comes out of it.
Yeah.
Like I was in Thailand for 6 months, and the last month of it, I never had any money.
Yeah.
My mate sent me some money and it never arrived.
Yeah.
Right. So that last month, I was having to ask people to help me out and letting them down, and all these different stories come out of it. But now, if you ask me about the 6 months I was there, the first 5 months was pretty much the same thing every day.
Yeah.
Well, what time are you going to eat? What time are you going to have a spliff? What time are you going to have a beer? Right? That was it. So the memories come out of the struggle, and you learn out of the struggle. Like I learned within myself that I wasn't going to nick off of anyone.
Yeah.
To get by.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Not off your own kind anyway, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there were times when I was on the beach, there's a camera next to me, I thought I could get a tenner for that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But I thought, no, I'm not like, my old man brought me up that way.
I think that's again like going back to the morals of Cockney culture, is you don't steal off your own. Like, you're not going to steal off another person that's working class.
Bad karma, mate.
Yeah, you could take something. I suppose back then people didn't care about taking something from the corporation, right?
I nicked a few things when I was a kid, and I got caught every time straight away. Yeah. Instant karma. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All my mates were doing it all the time, getting away with it, not me. Yeah. It's like, what? I was like, yeah. I was never good at it, so I never.
Not for you.
I never did it. Yeah. And also there's the moral side of it.
Yeah, of course.
About how it affects everyone else and whatever. But when you're that age, I mean, when I was out there, I was about 30, I think. Yeah. When I was in Thailand that time, and I remember there was 3 geezers I met on the flight on the way out there, and they got straight into heroin because it's pure out there. Yeah. So they put it in like an ugly bubbly, right? Yeah. And I sort of lost sight of them. So I went looking for them, and someone said, "Oh, they're staying in there." And I knocked on the door and I went inside, and they're all laying on the floor. And they're getting up and they're doing this thing, and they're throwing up and they're laying back down. They're all white skinned and all that. And I'm out there on my own. I don't know anyone. Do you know what I mean? It's like when you're out there for a long time, people come and go. You might meet someone who's all right, a mate for a week or two, and then he goes home. But I was staying out there for a long time. So them sort of things, I look at them and I thought, I don't want to get like that. Do you know what I mean? That ain't happening to me. I'm from East London, and we've got a certain thing we've got to keep up to. So I got away from that, and the rest of the time I had there was well, as I say, like when I had no money, it was an experience that you could never ever forget.
Yeah.
Those minutes, right? It's like all of a sudden you get someone buys you a beer, and it's like a bottle of champagne because you ain't had any money for a couple of days, right? What happened was it was, what was it, about the 14th of December, and I had a ticket, Taram Airways, to get back to England. And I phoned them up and they said, oh, the next flight's in February. Taram's Romanian Airways, right? So it's all confusion. And back in them, there's no internet, just phone calls. So in February, so I thought, right, I can phone up and get some money and fly home now. But I could phone up and get some money and wait until February and make that money last until February and then go home. So it all looks good on paper, right? But it never worked out like that. They went skint, then they went broke. So I was stuck out there, and the money that my mate sent never arrived. So now I'm asking these guys around me, can you do us a favour and help us out until Monday when the money's arrived? Because you always think it's going to come, but it never came, you know. But funny story about that, when I finally come home to England, I'd lost 2 stone, right, because I weren't eating that much. And when I got back, I walked up the pathway to my house where my dad used to live, right? And he's standing at the door and he goes, all right, mate. He goes, that'd be a £5, right? And I looked at him and said, Dad, it's me out. And he went, oh, all right, boy. I said, what's going on? He said, well, they're taking down all them houses, right? Because they're putting a motorway through there. So he moved that, but he'd moved him around the corner. So he had a house around the corner, but he kept the keys to this house, right? So I said, what's going on? He goes, we're doing raves in here, me and your brother. So I've gone in my house. I've put in the living room, there's an 8-foot stack there and an 8-foot stack there, right?
So speakers wall to wall.
No, speaker, 2 8-foot stacks, right?
Yeah.
I've gone down the hallway into the kitchen, and there's my sister's got a thing set up, a counter set up, beers in the fridge behind her, right? Gone upstairs into my old bedroom. It's all little lights in there. It's a chill out room, right? So anyway, all these people started coming. There was local pub people and all that. Just fivers on the door, bang bang bang.
What was the music then? What was that? What you come back to?
Rave music.
So that was early 90s, yeah. Late 80s, early 90s.
When would that have been? 91.
So getting back to it, when was the first country that you went backpacking or traveling? What was the first country that you picked after you spoke to Barry? Where did you start going?
Lloret de Mar, Spain.
Yeah.
That was my first one, 16, yeah. Got thrown out of the hotel. I mean, you ain't out of school at that age, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Your mentality's all over the place.
Of course.
And I went away with 2 of the geezers, out of 4 of us, 2 of them lost it over there, right? Our mate Manny, he was going out buying them knives where they flick out and flick in and all that, and he was getting drunk, and he had the hotel manager up against the wall. I'm standing in the bar, and this girl's coming, German girl's coming, and said, well, your friend, big trouble for you over there, your friend in there with knife. I'm like, you're having a laugh, aren't you? I've gone in there, it's like, man, you're out of the hotel, get out. Right, luckily, we was on the first floor, it's like above us, and next door to us was a bunch of Geordie geezers, right? And we told them what was going on. They went, don't worry, put your cases in our room, and of a night time you can just come and stay with us, right? So I said, all right, fine. So it worked out for 1 or 2 nights. But then we're walking home one night, and outside this thing, you had like these monkey bars. So it was handy, you could sort of climb up on them, it was like a kid's thing. You could sort of, and jump up to the balcony, right? And as we were walking home, it was what they called a Glasgow Fair was going on. So it's when the whole of Glasgow was shut down. And they all used to go to Lloret. And they're all out the balconies, all singing stuff. And my mate has started singing Bubbles, West Ham, and blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden, there's all these bottles being thrown at us out of balconies. And people started like, well, you West Ham, and chasing us down the road. And I remember getting up on this thing and jumping up. And thinking, oh, don't slip, you know what I mean? And I just got hold of it and I got up into the balcony. But yeah, it was a wreck. It was a good holiday,
Yeah.
but it was a lot.
That was sort of your first lads holiday, going away with your mates, this kind of experience. And then how did the travel progress? What happened from Spain? Like, did you want to start then getting into backpacking and seeing?
Well, that was when we was into clubbing. We was like 17, 18. So, I mean, my mate Steve, we used to drive up the West End and try and get in clubs like the Valbon and places like that. No chance of getting in. But we should try our luck, you know. And then the pub that we used to drink in, we had a big nucleus of mates, about 15, 20 of us. So we started going to Belgium for weekends. I remember at one time at Easter, the clubs used to shut at 12. So you'd be down the Spooky Lane and 12 o'clock, the DJ would cut it because it's Easter Friday, right? And it's such a gutter because it's supposed to shut at 2, but it shuts at 12, right? Because it's Easter Friday, Easter Saturday. So we said, right, we're not having this anymore. So we started going to Copenhagen. And they used to have a deal, right? 120 quid. You go from London to Harwich and you get on a overnight ferry, which has got a club on it and everything else. Okay. And then you get to Copenhagen, then you get on a train that goes over a few ferries and all that and finally gets to Copenhagen. 2 nights in a 4-star hotel and then the journey back. It was a bollocks. Yeah. We fell right on our feet. There was hardly anyone else doing it. And all of my mates was such a laugh. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? You could sit on a train and drink for 20 hours with them and you'd be laughing all the way. And that's what it was. We were just laughing all the time, you know.
And I think that was what happened in the 70s. Starting from the 70s in England, there was much more freedom with music. Different types of music was coming in. The youth had a lot more freedom. And that's when people after the 70s started to branch out, travel and do certain trips.
It was just around the time when flights become affordable, like they were doing holiday packages, right? Like when I was a kid, only the rich kids went to Spain and places like that. We all went to caravans, holiday camps, poor people, because the flights were so expensive. But by the time I got to like 16, 17, it all started to change. So we had it as probably, I think, when I think back of all the different generations, it was my generation that probably were luckier than all the rest because it was like wages to holiday. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like even like people like doing roofing and like people you think weren't earning a lot of money could still afford to go everywhere. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like my mates were all made up of all different professions. Yeah. But we all went on that 2-week holiday together. Yeah. And we all went on the weekends away together.
Yeah. And I suppose back then I've heard stories where their mates called them up and they say, I can't come, I'm going to lose my job. And they'd say, don't worry, you'd have another job when you go back. So people used to sack their job in after a couple of weeks just to go on a lad's weekend, come back and find another job next time.
Look at a guy I spoke about earlier on, Barry, right? He used to work for 6 months in England and then go away for 6 months. And the first 3 months, him and his mates used to go in a van, a Union Jack van, right? Go out to Ibiza. They'd stay out there for 3 months. And in that time, they'd get addresses and phone numbers of girls all across Europe, Germany, Sweden, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So after 3 months, they'd drive the van to all in different countries and they'd go to like, in Germany, Rhinelander, the river. They'd go to all these little wine festivals, right? And they'd work their way around and then end up in Sweden and stuff like that. And that to me, at that time in my life, was everything. It was like, wow, that's fantastic. Yeah. Going in different places, not worry about anything. And so the money was enough to be able to do all that stuff back then.
So when you went on all these trips, you must have met other people and been influenced to go to other places. When did you start getting a little bit more serious and get to bigger parts of the world, like going into Asia and stuff? What were them years?
21, everyone was doing the local countries. And me and my mate decided to go to California. and we also had 5 other mates who was going out there as well. So they went out there first, and me and Wayne went out there, and we met them out there, and that was in Santa Monica, which is just outside Los Angeles. And so we met up with my mates, and they went home, but we was there for 5 weeks, me and Wayne. And we were staying in a motel. And it was right by Santa Monica Pier, which is a nice place, right? You go and sit out on a pier, a place called the Boathouse. And then from there, we was down, I mean, it was a fantastic place back then. The Sunspot, Malibu Beach Club. It was just so different to what we were used to, you know. And it was the first time I'd ever felt like a pop star that didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Mm. We had like highlights in our hair, and we were 21, and our accent and all that, and girls were attracted. So it felt good, you know what I mean? Because we were never used to that. So anyway, we've come back from there, and I said, I like that out there, didn't you? She said, want to go back? So we saved up for a year. I was working nights in the print, and so was, oh no, Wayne was working days, I was working nights. And we saved up for a year, and then I finished my apprenticeship, done my thing, my print thing, and we went back to the States, and we went to New York. Funny thing was, we want to buy a van to travel around the States. And everyone we talked to give us a totally different answer. One would say, yeah, you get a van for $300. Another one would say, you won't get nothing less than $3,000 here. Do you know what I mean? And it was like, what's going on here? So we thought, right, let's get out of New York. So we got a Greyhound bus down to Philadelphia, and we looked at a few vans, and some of them looked all right, like old Volkswagen vans, but all of a sudden we see this one van, and it's like got big fat wheels on it. It's like, what's that sparkly?
Yeah, like glitter kind of spray job on it.
Green paint, right?
Yeah.
Inside it's got a double bed. It's got a little dry ice fridge. We put dry ice in, it keeps your stuff cold and that. And it had 4 speakers in there. And it was a V8 or V12. It was like, it done about 14 miles to the gallon. It didn't do much, right? And we're traveling around the States in it. But everything was cheap back then.
Yeah,
so it didn't matter that much. And that's what happened. We got the van in Philadelphia. We went down to Virginia, stayed there for a few weeks, and then we thought it was good over in California, wasn't it? So we go back over there. So we drove across America, but over to California again. But we didn't realise that where we decided to go across was the Bible Belt. All these dry counties, right? We didn't even know at the time. So we're going through like Tennessee, Arkansas, you know, and as you go across New Mexico, Arizona, all them states. But everywhere we went, we had a blast. You know, where they'd never met English people before. And the funny thing was, there's me and Wayne into jazz funk over in London, and all these are putting on Led Zeppelin. That was the big thing out there in them days, Led Zeppelin. It was what the white Americans was into that we met. Yeah. So it was a bit of a strange one, because we didn't really know.
That trip, did that give you a buzz to want to live in America?
We had a few chances.
Yeah.
So we had some weird people give us some opportunities. But I don't know if at the time, I think I was at the age then where anything was possible, everything's possible. It doesn't matter what you do, it's all going to work out. Yeah. You know, and that's sort of how I was back in them days.
So when you had the racing going on in the UK at the time, and you said you come back from Asia, from Thailand, and your dad was having that thing in the house. That was a different era of music that you then got into, right? In the rave scene. Where did that take?
There was a big gap, right, between getting sort of fed up with the jazz funk, because there's only so much of it's made. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
I think in the years after that, I was listening to more like Steely Dan and stuff like that, right? And then I broke up with my girlfriend. It was 1988. I broke up with my girlfriend for 7 years. So I was at a bit of a loss. Most of my mates got their girlfriends, are having their first kid, they got their first house. So I'm like, what's going on? My brother said to me, well, we're going down the dungeons, right? Mm. What's that? Acid party. Because before Raves, it was called acid parties, right? And I'd seen something on the telly where I saw black and white lights. You know, I thought, what's all that about? I didn't really give it that much respect. I didn't know nothing about it either at the same time, you know. So we'd gone down the dungeons and they said, take this tablet. And I took the tablet and that was it, bang, bang. All of a sudden, I'd found my music. Because back in the jazz funk days, there was, people used to dance to it a certain way. Do you know what I mean? But it was within a certain behavioural pattern. Mm. But with the raving, it was like, you fucking what?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? All going mental. Mm. And I loved it. So to me, the rave music is more enjoyable.
And how did your dad get into seeing a market in this and making money from it? Where did that come from?
Well, through us.
Through you, yeah?
Yeah, because we put on a lot of raves, didn't we, ourselves?
And he was running the hot dog stalls out the front.
Alf's mental menu. He used to have in the back of the caravan, didn't he? And because he was so big, when he used to rock, the old caravan used to rock with it. Right? He just jumped on board, you know.
And I heard when the people come out of the club and were desperate for something to eat, they'd been dancing for hours and hours. He would have all sorts of prices for them.
It was funny when he was there.
Yeah.
It was funny.
I think he was an opportunist.
Yeah,
I see.
I'll tell you a funny story about my dad, right? He was always good with the money, right? Because I wasn't. I used to put on parties because I wanted to be in the party.
Yeah.
Not because I wanted to make money out of it.
Yeah, of course,
what I mean?
Yeah.
I just wanted to set something up that I could enjoy, right? So that's so anyway. I'm working in the print, but I'm a director of a print company. So I'll go to this gym just off of Carnaby Street, right? It's on the back of Carnaby Street, and it's a 5-star health gym. Like when you walk in, you've got this like Roman pool, and you've got like little waterfalls that you can dip into other pools. It's got all mirrors around it and everything, right? So I've said to them, I'd like to hire it out for a business function. They've said, yeah, no problem, right? But I'm doing a rave there. So I've got a geezer in there to help me with the speaker sound system and that. And my old man's going to work on the door. So we've got the smoke machine set up. We've got the lights, smoke machines and everything. Yeah. Set everything up. But I also knew there's going to be a lot of people there that ain't going to want to pay to get in because they know one of us, right? So let me just get there.
You go for it.
I've got to the point where, you know, it's like when you're setting up something, you think, oh, I'm done now, I want to have a beer. So before I left, I said to my dad, no one gets in without paying for a tenner. They're all going to try and get into nothing, but everyone's got to pay a tenner. And then I've gone in the pub next door, right? So we're standing there having a drink, and this woman's coming. And she looks sort of like a bit of authority, and she's looking about, and she looked over at me, and I said, all right. She goes, you Alfie? I said, yeah. She said, well, I'm trying to get in the club. She goes, I'm the one that's got the keys to the club. I'm opening and shutting it. She said, there's a man on the door won't let me in unless I'll give him £10. Right? So I've had to walk her back to the front door and say to me, old man, Dad, she's all right. Do you know what I mean? Let her in. He went, I don't fucking know, do I? You told me everyone's fucking trying to get me nothing and that. But I ended up getting all right, them two. So yeah, all them sort of raves we used to do. And I used to love it. I don't think I ever earned any money out of any of them.
Yeah.
Not really. I don't remember, like, with, you know, a big bottle of notes.
Yeah.
You should do it for the crack, really, for the laugh. I mean, we had some nice raves in nice places, you know.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it as well was when we first started going to them, when it started all of a sudden exploding, people charging like £1.50 for a bottle of water and they're turning off the taps in the bathroom and all them things. And I always thought, no, I want to give people a fair do, you know, if I'm going to do one.
Yeah.
And that was why I never earned any money out of it, because I used to do that. I mean, we had a little rave around the back of the Apollo in Stratford Broadway. We had a little rave. We had a little balcony upstairs and downstairs, and I was serving 2 Ball Gold, which is a good beer. Do you know what I mean? But it weren't long until I found out I might as well get a case of Viborg instead of 2 Ball, because no one really knows the difference except me, because I wanted to give out a good product, you know. So yeah, through that, and there's a lot of other instances like that in my life as well. I'll tell you another quick one. So I'm living out in Brazil. I'm married to a Brazilian woman, right? But now I decided to move out there. I ain't really thought much about it, about what I'm going to do and how it's going to work. But I'm thinking, it's going to work somehow. Like it always does, Alf, you know? But it don't always work out like that. It always end up broke and going back home. So I'm out there, and I've said to my wife, what should we do? She said, we get a little churrasco thing. We get a cart, do the little steaks and chicken and all that on the sticks. I said, all right. So I got one. It cost $700. It's stainless steel. It's a nice one. And it's got a thing in it where you put in ice and beers, right? So, right, lovely. So where her family lived was, it's like a pyramid, and at the top there's a little flat bit. Right, it's got a little church up there and a little flat bit where people walk about and that. But coming down from there was all like these like maze of streets, right? Very complicated area. I never got used to it. I always used to get lost there. So, right, okay, we're going to do the barbecue thing, right? Now, when you get them off the street, normally the steak's very chewy, right? So I thought, like, no, I missed the 5 stars, you know what I mean? Let's get a nice beef instead, a nice steak, so they're really nice. So we did that. We got a nice one. But I didn't do the math, right? But we did it anyway. Now, the ice, you have to go down to the bottom, right, which goes down this cone of streets. Then you get down to ground level, and you've got this big place that does big bags of ice. But they only did 20 kilo bags, right? 20 kilos is about 40, 50 pounds, isn't it? Right? So now I've got this big thing over my shoulder, and now I've got to walk it all the way up to the top. And as I'm walking up, it starts melting, you know, like the outside of it, all water coming down, and I'm putting it over this side, and I'm trying to put it on my head, and I remember walking past these bars on the way up, and there's all these Brazilians sitting outside on the floor looking at me, like, what are you doing, you fucking donut? Do you know what I mean? And I felt like a donut, and I was a donut, right? So I've got it up to the top, put the ice in, right? But got the beers in there, and I'm sitting there. Now, because it's a new thing, no one knows anyone's up there, I'll start drinking the beers, right? So I've bought the beers. She's put the profit on them. So like say it's R2 a beer, she's charging R3. I'm buying them for R3 to keep the business going, right? When we did the math afterwards, that bag of ice, right, was about, say, R10. So that means I've got to sell 10 beers to get the money back on the ice, right? The meat, because I bought nice meat, there's no profit in it, right? So the whole thing was a massive farce, you know?
So things in your life were done more out of the passion than the business side of things. You were doing more things for the gathering.
Rubbish at business.
Yeah.
Never been any good at business. I've been all right, like with football out in the States. I was coaching out there, wasn't I?
Yeah.
So that was different. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't where I had to be an entrepreneur and go out and make money. It was like time for money. Do you know what I mean? I coach a certain amount of time, gets paid a certain amount of money. But as far as, I never had a passion enough to make money, to get ahead.
Yeah.
If I had enough, that was all right.
Yeah.
I mean, I was never worried about getting rich.
So sum up a lot of these stories that we've covered today, and the various places, which I know we could go on forever with fantastic stories, but at the point you're in your life now and the places you've been and the years that you've been through, for any younger people watching this,
Permaculture.
That's your
Permaculture.
That's your future.
That's it.
Yeah.
That should be for a lot of people, right? If you consider a piece of dirt, you can grow stuff and you can eat it and it's for free, right? Not enough people make that calculation. When you're young, you don't care about it, right? At a certain age, you might care about it, and another age, you might actually do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to have a happy life, you get a piece of land and you do permaculture, because there's so many things. One of the best things I like about permaculture is it always gets better and better and better. It never goes the other way. So what that means is that your soil builds up, your plant growth builds up, your food grows up, you get better at doing the chickens, you get better at doing your meat. Everything gets better and better. And then once you get a certain knowledge of it, other people want to come and stay and learn. So now you've got a centre where you have people to come and learn how it's all done.
A community that you can control, like with the people you want around you.
It's about life values, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, we've been taken away from nature.
Mm-hmm.
We've been, you know, our senses have dimmed, if you like.
Yeah.
There's nothing like getting an egg from a chicken that's yours and cracking it and growing food that you've grown yourself.
Yeah.
The way that the world's going, you know, everything's poisoned.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't eat anything out of a can or a packet anymore. It's just vegetables, meat, blah, blah, blah. Because I don't trust anything else. So you get your own little bit of land and you start doing permaculture, you've got all the stuff you can grow. Because the lovely thing about permaculture is you're copying nature. And so everything gets used, gets put back into the land. There's building projects, and now you can integrate new technology into it with your solar panels and everything else. And everyone that does a project like that is always happy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're always happy people. When you see them, like for me, like swales, which are ditches on contour. So you have a dam at the top, and then you have these swales coming off of it, and then one swale goes into another, and you watch how everything grows around it. To me, that's magic.
Yeah.
That's the paradise of life.
We're not.
It's stuff like that.
Being in a city or from a city, you don't grow up in them cultures, so you don't get to learn a lot about that stuff, do you?
It's all taken away from us, isn't it? You know.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all in these little boxes that we live in.
Yeah.
And we try and make it work.
Yeah.
And it makes us what we are in a lot of senses. But at the same time, that there's nothing like being out in nature now. I mean, you know, one of the reasons we're here today is because of travel and living places, stuff like that. And when I've lived in small towns, like in Colorado, up in the mountains, places like that, it's lovely, that serenity, you know, not being around. You have to be with some people. But when you've got loads of people around you all the time,
but you've got space.
It sort of numbs itself
front
out.
garden,
doesn't it?
back garden.
Yeah.
You've got the mountains. You can be in 10 minutes. You can be there.
Nature, that connection with nature, you know, growing your own food, community. That's one of the biggest things that they've taken away from us, is our sense of community, where people connect with each other.
Everyone helps.
When you're doing something and someone passes you something and you do that and they say, oh, thank you, and it's all little thank yous and you've helped me out here and there.
Trading this for this.
Yeah, or just helping
food.
each other out on a project, right? That community thing. Yeah. That's why people in the third world are a lot more happy than people in the West. Yeah. Because they're around each other all the time. Yeah. They make each other laugh all the time. And what in the West has been over the last however many decades is get your own house and build a wall around it and seclude yourself from everyone else. Yeah. Right? And then all you've got is the TV, which is programming. It just programs your mind. I mean, you see I ain't got no TV in here. Yeah. Don't watch it, you know what I mean?
And so what would you feel your message is for youngsters that are wanting to travel? What would you say how to travel? You know, what would you give a message for?
Well, I mean, the way that you travel nowadays is so different to when I was young, right? So a lot of places have been saturated. So it's like every man dances to his own tune. I don't think it's that important where you are in the world. It's more important where you are in your head.
Perspective.
Right? And the way that I would explain that is let's say, for instance, every day you wake up and your vibration is at 0, right? And then you start to have a negative thought about someone or something. So now you're going below 0. Now you're going downstairs a little bit. And then that attracts other bad energies around it.
Yeah.
And your life becomes like that.
Yeah.
So I think you have to become your own third person, where you can stand back from yourself and look back and think, right, you've got the ego going off in the head, and you've got the heart, and everything that comes from the heart is pure and natural and nice. You're never going to get in any trouble. But the ego jumps in and says, no, fuck all that. We're going to smash it up. We're going to, So everyone's got nice thoughts and everyone's got bad thoughts, right? The bad thoughts shout loud enough, they cover up the nice thought from the heart. You have to stand back and untangle the two. Go, right, hold on a minute. That horrible thought I just had weren't really me. That was coming from the ego, which comes from a memory bank of a lifetime of thoughts that someone said to you or someone's done to you, right? You're this, you're that. So you're dragging all this stuff out of that, and that's all coming into your head, but you think it's you.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because you haven't asked the heart yet. And one of the always interesting things I used to think about the old, like the Indians, the shamans and stuff, is that when you ask them a question, they'd always sit there and pause before they answered. And my thing is, it might not be true, but I think it is that they're clearing away the negative thoughts from the ego first, and then they're waiting for the answer to come through the heart. And that's what most of us do wrong. We react impulsively with the ego jumping in and screwing everything up.
That's it.
You know?
Yeah.
And be able to self-diagnose yourself, right? And so every time you start having a bad thought and it goes down, catch it. Go, no, I'm not going here, right? Going to cancel it. Yeah, but he's a fucker, he's this, he's that. Forget about that, right? The most important thing is to be happy, right? So you could say, do you want to be happy or do you want to be right? Because a lot of people spend a lot of time trying to be right in the argument, right? But while you're arguing in the argument, you can't be happy. You can't do both at the same time. So you choose one. Right, I want to be happy. So every time an instance comes in where you're going to get into a row, you have to be the third person and say, no, mate, I don't want nothing to do with it. And bad thoughts and then negative energy, right? And then you can be a bit happier if you go through life catching yourself.
And I think that's the same with a lot of people who travel now. They'll listen to the brain more than actually go and experience places where people shut themselves down. Going to this country someone might tell them it's dangerous, but I think you've got to go figure it out for yourself.
I mean, look, as I said earlier on about that last month I had in Thailand, right? The memories come out of the obstacles, the problems. When everything's going smooth, there's nothing to it, right? It's only when something goes wrong. People worry too much about it going wrong, right? And you're a great example of someone that goes into all sorts of weird places in Africa and everywhere else and takes a chance. Now, I always had that. I've been to raves in Brazil where I've been the only white geezer there. Do you know what I mean? And it's all like black and dark Brazilians around me, not even the light-coloured ones, right? Because there's a certain music, it's like they call it funk, Brazilian funk. And I've just got this feeling that everything's going to be all right. And it was. It always was.
That's it. So
I never had problems.
Not letting the mind overtake.
Fear.
Exactly.
You know? If you want to go into it deeply, the way that this whole system around us is set up is to keep fear into people, right? To keep you in fear, not to realise who you actually are. And that goes off into a whole spiritual thing, but that's what I believe, you know.
Yeah.
We are beings having an experience on this earth, as opposed to humans trying to have an experience outside. So we've come in for this experience. So don't take it so seriously, you know. It's all a big show.
Yeah.
You know, take a chance.
Yeah.
Make mistakes.
Yeah.
If you don't make mistakes, you don't learn. You haven't got a story if you don't make mistakes.
Yeah.
My life's full of mistakes. I've got lots of stories. I couldn't tell you one paragraph about how a relationship works with a woman, but I could tell you 1,000 ways how it doesn't, right? Because I've been through them.
Yeah.
Betrayal, this,
Yeah.
that, blah, blah, blah.
Mm.
So it equips you, right, with knowledge, apart from anything else.
Yeah.
Like, I wish someone would have spoke to me about relationships and that when I was younger.
Yeah.
You know, I think I overrated romance a bit too much.
Yeah.
You know, I think relationships should be a bit more practical if they're going to work. All the roses and the valentines and all that and the pretty girl stuff, it's all good up front, but when you actually get down to it, you know, it normally goes wrong for one reason or another. So a practical relationship is better, I think.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Glad we've done it finally. Thank you, Alf.